Joey from Joey's Jams. Welcome to the show.
Sure.
And for anyone who may not have, tuned in from my audience that hasn't tuned into your show yet, just tell us a little bit who you are, what you're about, what drove you to start Joey's Jams, the whole spiel.
Got you. Well, my name is Joey. I'm trying to get like a less awkward position. Here we go.
You're good.
All right. I'm trying to like look at the camera and hit the mic at the same time. All right. Here we go. My name is Joey. I am the creator of Joey's Jams. I think this is my first live camera appearance with Joey's Jams, so
that's awesome.
Right? I'm thankful for that. Thankful to be here. Thank you for having me on the show. I started this project this past November. I'm a first-year student here at Rutgers. I study political science and philosophy, and I knew I wanted to get into student radio, college radio, when I got here. And I found the right people. Shout out to King. He has a show Thursday at 8 p.m. And shout out to Justin. He is the homie. He's the club president.
Yes.
And when's your next show? Let me shout it out.
It should be this Wednesday.
This Wednesday.
Free period.
Free period. On here?
No. Yeah, it should be in here. Yeah.
All right. But I started this project. I knew I wanted to do student radio. So I just kind of dove right in, did all the logistics for my show, created the name, the image, the themes, whatever, the show structure. And what I do really is I play a lot of music. I talk about it. I have guests come on sometimes, interview various musicians and stuff. But a lot of music, a lot of DJing. And I love to explore new sounds. I like to sort of push the boundaries of what music is like. I like a lot of diverse stuff. I'm all over, from jazz, classical, hip hop, funk, R&B, punk, and then ambient, electronic. I'm everywhere. So I like to push the boundaries of music. I like to explore. I like to learn new things. And I like to have a good time in the studio. I usually bring some friends in, and it's a vibe. So yeah. That's
awesome.
What I do.
That's awesome. I think even just in the tracks that you picked, we could hear the range of sounds.
Yeah.
And so I was curious. I mean, for some people, music is just a form of entertainment. It's just something that they like, things like that. But then there are other people who it's literally their passion, you
Yes.
know, and it kind of shapes who they are as a person. So what drives your passion for music?
Well, that's tough to say because I'm not a musician. I used to play saxophone. I played saxophone for most of school, but I stopped. I don't know, something about high school band, just I wasn't interested anymore, but that's beside the point.
There's a lot going on in high school band.
Oh yeah, a lot. So I won't dive into the specifics of that, but I ended up kind of dropping saxophone. But what drives me with music is, like I said, just finding new sounds. For me, music is a shared experience. People say eating is a shared experience. To sit with someone and for me, sitting with someone and sharing music with them, that's it's a very almost communal act, very meaningful act. And so to be able to not only share, music that I love with people that I'm immediately with, but just a larger audience, I feel like it's a very unique experience, a very fulfilling one. So that's what drives me. That's what keeps me going. The ability to just share new sounds with people and share those moments of hearing new music with people is what does it for me.
Yeah, that's super cool. I know you mentioned a lot of different styles that you're into. Which ones would you say you kind of identify with the most, or when you discovered a certain genre where you were just wow, this really speaks to me?
Well, I think for me, I love a lot, but my biggest sort of defining genre, I'd say, is hip hop.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's because it's such a diverse genre. I mean, not that other genres aren't diverse, but hip hop, it's such a diverse genre. You have anything from boom bap to coke rap, or the newer SoundCloud stuff.
Yeah.
Or, the sounds are unlimited, G-funk, whatever. It's just so diverse. The sounds are so diverse. Something about the production and the process of beat making is really fascinating to me.
Yes.
if you watch some of the greats like Dillon and Madlib, the way they make their beats.
Mm-hmm.
So hip hop for me, and the whole culture, that the fashion, the art, the style, the sort of ethos of hip hop, I think for me is what makes it that primary genre. But yeah, shout out to jazz and punk too. Those are great genres.
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, like, punk is one that I have to tap into more. But like, I've definitely started messing around with it a little bit, especially like bands like Black Midi, different things like that. I mean, they're not as punk, but they're a little bit more hardcore than what I'm used to. So it's like kind of like a good gateway for me. Jazz too, because they kind of mess around with that stuff too. No, but hip hop for me too, also especially because like there's just so much poetry involved with it.
Yes,
and, like I do
absolutely.
poetry too. So no, that's a big one. And I think what's interesting about hip hop too is it's almost kind of like how you described it is the opposite of how a lot of people perceive it. You know?
How so?
I think a lot of people just assume that hip hop is the mainstream rap that's on the radio, and that rap is great, but there's so many more dimensions. There's so many different styles. You know, it's not just like 808s and hi-hats, right?
Yeah.
There's so much more that you can play with it. So yeah, no, I relate to that as well. And like, what artists would you say, like, you know, what artists would you shout out for people who, you know, really put them on game?
So we're going for artists that aren't as big then?
Whatever you think, you know, would really is, you know, really interesting. People are doing some really interesting work out there right now.
Yes.
Either hip hop, other genres, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, speaking to you right now.
Right now, I mean, the classics, A Tribe Called Quest, Kendrick Lamar,
Mhm.
those are the best. Love them. But some guys who are doing some stuff now, and gals, JPEG Mafia.
Yes.
Go check him out if you don't already.
100%.
The Loopers.
Yes.
The
Another one.
Yes, the Loopers. All the guys in Griselda.
Mm-hmm.
Maya the Pisces. She's a cool one. Shoot. And let me get one more. Let me look at my spot. I'm gonna cheat real quick. Hold on.
Go for it. No, those are some really good picks, though.
You know what? I'm gonna say Kate Renata. He's pretty big already, but go check out Kate Renata.
I mean, the track that you played by him was so good.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I hadn't heard that one before. And it's interesting because I haven't heard of Maya the Pisces, but in all those other artists, the thing that really stands out to me about them is that their music is so, like, just dynamic. It's really dynamic. It's really interesting. And there's a lot of artists on campus, a lot of, like, you know, aspiring musicians and things like that. And I was curious, even though you're not a musician, you're passionate, you know, about music. And I was curious to hear your perspective on what makes, like, a good song that's, you know, just like listenable, it's fine in the background. What separates a good song from a really interesting and unique, great song?
That's a really hard question. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I want to say the lyrics. I want to say the lyrical content is what really separates, like, an easy listening good song from, like, a really, like, sort of deeper. But I feel like there's more to it than just that, because instruments have the ability to provoke emotion in a way that just lyrics alone can't. So I think there's, like, a sweet spot where the relationship between the producer and the MC is just, like, tight enough that they, like, can create something. You know what I mean? Like, for me, like, the album that I can use as an example of this, Mad Villainy. MF Doom and Madlib had that relationship where, like, they were able to craft music that just really, like, moves you as a person. So I think it's that. I think it's the perfect coupling of lyricism with just, like, a certain production style that just they work together. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I think sort of, you know, what you were hinting at there is, like, more of, like, an intention to it. You know, it's not just things that sound good for the sake of sounding good. Like, yes, that's a part of it, but also, like, working as hard as you can to make it as cohesive as possible.
Everything's there for a purpose.
Yeah, because I definitely hear that with Mad Villainy for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's a really good one. And just putting music to the side for a second, because I wanted to get to a couple of other things that you're into.
Sure.
So you're running for SGA.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that. Tell me, you know, your experience doing it so far, running for it, some changes you'd like to see on campus. Just go for it.
Sure. So I am running for SGA. I'm running for the position of representative for the College of Arts and Sciences. And so what my job would to be representing my constituents, so representing all of the students of the College of Arts and Sciences here. My responsibility would be sort of gauging the views and the beliefs of the student body and trying to make sure that they're represented well within student gov here. And really my policies, my platforms are of transparency, of course. There's a lot going on here at Rutgers with faculty strikes, union stuff, and as well as just general complaints about like the conditions of Rutgers, the quality of certain infrastructures here. So transparency from administration about what's going on campus. For me, arts and music is huge. Fostering and developing more of an arts and music and culture. Here, obviously, we have some great cultural programs here, without a doubt.
Of course.
But sort of giving voices to people who are into a lot of stuff but have never had the chance to share it.
Yes, that's
fostering
so huge.
that. Yes,
that is so huge.
Absolutely. Fostering that on campus, to me, is something I'm going to prioritize because everyone, it's fun. It's community building, and I think we need more of it here. So transparency, fostering community through culture and music and art, and accessibility, right? I know we have we already have a department or a office for disability services here. I think it's going to expand that. I still see around doors that don't have automatic opening and curbs that aren't accessible, certain little things that start to add up on this campus, and I think we need to do a better job of helping our disabled students with that. Improved campus conditions, just overall cleanliness, functionality of the equipment in various classrooms, especially in Armitage Hall. Some of the sound paneling is falling off the walls. Projectors are from like the 60s. I mean, I know I've spoken to administration a good bit about that kind of stuff, and it's tough because some of it is really much larger projects, but I do thoroughly believe that there's a lot we can do kind of with immediacy that can be done now.
And so that's interesting because I think a lot of what you're talking about there, especially with the living conditions and things like that, a lot of that, especially with like curbs and things like that, that's not something that you would automatically think of if it didn't directly affect you, right? But a lot of those things unconsciously, affect your day to day. And if, for example, it's directly affecting you, then obviously, if you are disabled, things like that, then it's, obviously much more of an issue. So I'm curious from your perspective, since you've spent time researching these things, especially, like for example, the sound panels, something I would have never thought of, right? The like the unconscious effect that has on our learning ability. What have you found, just in researching those things a little bit more, that maybe don't come first to mind, but do play a role in our ability, students, just living and different things like that.
Gotcha. Absolutely. So, hold on, let me. Does mine echo like yours does? Am I good?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay,
You're all
cool,
good.
cool.
You're all good, mic-wise.
Cool. I always second guess the mics because I know we have mic trouble so much down here. So I always like, but as far as student success goes in relation to physical conditions here, so I actually wrote a study. I co-authored it with a few of my peers, originally through the Honors College. It just started off as a first-year form project about physical health, and we chose to look at the relationship between the campus conditions, both dorms and just general facilities, and three things: student health, student physical health, student academic ability or success, and faculty ability, like faculty's ability to teach, to conduct research. And we found that through a survey, we had about a little over 100 people who filled out our survey, and we did some sort of investigative work ourselves. We found that we believe there's a strong link between the physical conditions of both the dorms and the various classrooms, a link between those and both the physical health and the academic performance of students. Students say that things like mice and bugs and faulty air conditioning, bad air filters, mold in their rooms, sound paneling falling off the walls, projectors. All these things are distractors for education.
Interesting.
They take away from the classroom time. They take away from the teacher's abilities to teach well, and sometimes, especially for STEM, when in art, STEM and fine arts, where equipment is needed. Like for me, I'm political science and philosophy. They don't need a whole lot of equipment, but for those classes, you need a lot of equipment.
Yeah.
And when that stuff doesn't work, it makes teaching difficult. It makes learning difficult. And then the students who dorm here go back to their dorms, and their dorms might have mold. Their dorms might have leaks. My roommate, he actually had a leak in the beginning of the school year. He had to move out. They moved him to a room. That room had leaks in it too.
Oh,
they had to move him again.
Yeah.
So it's a very prevalent problem, and it definitely affects how students engage with their schoolwork and how teachers can teach.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think that that's like a part of the dialogue of the student experience that sometimes doesn't get talked about as much, because it's just, you know, did I study enough, and did I get my grade, and is that grade going to push me to a job, or different things like that. But there's so many like intricate details that go into your ability to perform. Like I'm even imagining, you know, when you're taking an exam, so much of your environment and your headspace, you know, affects the grade that you're going to get and different things like that. So I think it's a really interesting study. I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about, but really impacts what's going on in the day to day.
Oh yeah.
And your experience, like doing this research and getting more involved in campus and different things like that. You know, what have you personally learned from it? You know, because you're a first year student, so you kind of just jumped right in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of just jumped right into. I'm a doer, so I like to sort of sink my teeth into as much as I can. I like to get involved, so we found that I think one of the biggest takeaways from all of this is completely unrelated to any of the actual things going on in these dorms or in these campus buildings, but it's that people are hesitant to speak up or to be self-advocates, right? And then especially this came out when we met with faculty and like faculty unions. We've met with administration, various administrators. A lot of the problem is not just that these things exist and that it affects the students, but that students are hesitant or afraid or whatever to speak out about them. Like, and for me, because the school, like, it's sort of a communication is what's so valuable in fixing these types of issues at college campuses. And when students don't, there's a part of it is student responsibility. Like, this is your space. Part of bettering it is your responsibility. Like, of course these things should be fixed, but like the school has to know about it to fix it. And so I think one of the biggest parts is giving students the tools or the confidence or whatever it may be to become stronger self-advocates for what's wrong in their dorm, what's wrong in their classrooms. And if enough students start speaking up about these things, even for the larger projects, the school will listen. But it just it'll come with time.
Interesting. So a lot of it comes from self-advocacy is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
And then, you know, sometimes there are students that maybe struggle with learning how to, you know, kind of articulate themselves in that way.
Right.
Where do you think some of that, I guess, hesitation stems from? Is it a lack of resources? Is it a lack of confidence? You know, what have you seen in working with people, you know, to kind of express how they're feeling a little bit more?
I think, I don't even want to say, maybe not even confidence. Maybe part of it's confidence, but I think a lot of it's lack of resources. I think a lot of it is that at Rutgers-Camden, we're a primarily commuter school. Not a lot of people live on campus. A lot of people kind of are here just to take their classes, get their education, graduate, and get out.
I used to be one of those people when I started. Yeah, it's the reality.
Right, and when life puts you in those situations, that's what you got to do, right? But that kind of goes against the idea of fostering that larger community, because when you have needs that you need to meet, and part of that is just getting an education, you're going to want to do it as fast as you can, and you're not going to be able to stop to think about, you know, I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I'm able to like think about these things, but a lot of people here can't.
Yeah.
And so part of it is like trying to be a self-advocate, but also being able to be an advocate for people who, under their circumstances, can't speak up, or give them the resources, maybe take the load off of their back a little bit, so they are able to speak up. Like let them know, like just because you're here to get your education, and you know, whatever you need to provide, like you're still entitled to better. You're still entitled to more. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that that's something that just plays into the student experience so much. Is, you know, I think sometimes you learn to kind of like the standards that you put for yourself sometimes end up being the standards that, you know, like are put on to you. You know, for example, like you said, if you are entitled to more, you also have to do the work to kind of express that. Otherwise, things will stay the same.
Right.
And you know, I think one thing that may help with that is, like you said, more community involvement. Because that's one thing that I've done some research for the Learning Center on this, is because we are a commuter school, how do we get students more involved to then feel more motivated to speak up for the things that they, you know, want to see changed, or even just, you know, be more motivated to study with other people and see how that can improve academic performance and different things like that, because it's not all just what's in the textbook.
Right.
And so from your experiences, having done some research on this as well, sort of in a different area, what recommendations would you give for people who are commuters but do want to get involved but may not quite know how?
Well, for a commuter that wants to get involved, I mean, of course I'm going to say, come downstairs, come to the WCCR radio station, come hang out with us. If you're into student radio, if you're into any sort of event, we do events and everything, so of course there's that. If you are looking for something specific to do, check out the radio, of course. But just generally, if you're looking to get involved and you're a commuter and you're not sure where to start, I think if you go on the Rutgers Camden app, look at all the events that are going on. It's not all stuff that's going on at nighttime. It's not all stuff that's going on, you know, in people's dorms and stuff. There's a lot of events, fun events that go on the campus center, or sorry, in the campus center on campus, that are a lot of them during free period. So, and there's free food, usually refreshments, so if you have the time during free period, and that's a great way to get involved. I know sometimes I go on there and just look for various events to check out and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think also it's also a larger like systemic issue though that prevents people from getting involved, and it's that the burdens they have are so burdenous that like they just don't have the time. So I think part of it is asking Rutgers what they can do to help these people who are just commuting and getting their education as fast as they can.
Yeah.
To feel less of a burden, you know, less of a sort of help them get through this process easier and be able to enjoy it more.
Yeah, that's a really key thing, and that's something that we've been starting to focus on as well, because sometimes it can be small things. Like, for example, we opened up our office to general study hours, and we're trying to work on getting some like comfortable furniture in there. Just like sometimes it's small things, but you know, if you have places that you feel like you can go to that you can feel somewhat at home, as if because you're at campus so much, you know, and you don't want it to just feel like you're there to clock in and clock out. You know, there 100% should be places, and maybe, you know, more than just two, because then, like, I know for me, for example, you know, I typically don't hang out in the campus center because it's always loud, there's always things going on. So if there's only 2 or 3 places that students can feel like they can kind of just like let their book bag down and just like hang out on the couch and study, for example, you know, I think that's really helpful in general, to just kind of have students just feel more comfortable in campus. That's something that we've been working on in our office as well, so I think that's a big one for sure.
Absolutely. I know the library I feel like the library is vastly underused as well.
Agreed.
Here. I mean, it's a huge space with a ton of resources and places to sit, study, relax. So I'll plug the library.
I second that. That's where I go. That's instead of going to campus center, that's typically where I go. No hate on the campus center. Campus center is great,
but it does get loud.
Yeah, it gets loud. And you know, not everyone has headphones loud enough to block all that out.
Right.
But yeah, so you've got a lot of interesting things going on, and you're a freshman. So going forward, into the next couple of semesters, you have a lot of projects that you're interested in. Where do you, what is your vision going forward? What's something that, you really kind of want to see accomplished for yourself? Just what's up for you in the next couple of semesters?
So,
and the show too.
Yes. So, a lot is up in the air for me personally right now. I'm getting into some. I'm getting into some personal stuff here, but that's okay.
Yeah,
so
love it.
I'm thinking about. So I did apply to transfer to New Brunswick, but I really love it here, and I don't want to transfer now. So right now where I'm at is kind of dependent on whether I get in, and then like financials, of course. But I will say that regardless of which campus I'm on, and I do want to stay here for at least another semester. Regardless of what campus I'm on, I'll be doing Joey's Jams. I'm looking to transfer Joey's Jams over to New Brunswick. If I do end up going there, I will be continuing with the quality improvement stuff for Rutgers campuses, and I'll be even looking to expand that to New Brunswick and maybe even Newark. Who knows where this project's going to go.
That's awesome.
Thank you. But yeah, so I'll be continuing with everything, but I do love it here. I like that this is like a smaller campus. I feel like it fosters a community more.
100%.
And it's also in Camden, which for a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people say a lot of not so great things about where this campus is located. Do we have the time? Can I talk about a little bit about?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Camden is an awesome city, right? And people trash it all the time, and it bothers me a lot because when you look at the history of Camden and like everything that's happened here, the development of this city, it's a fascinating story. It's a story of like a lot of tragedy and a lot of hardship and a lot of larger corporations taking advantage of kind of a vulnerable population. But it's also a story of like resilience and from like an urban planning perspective, and an urban studies perspective, which I'm not in urban studies, but it's a really interesting subject for me.
Yeah.
So to be able to study in a city that has such a rich history, and is also a train ride away from Philadelphia, which has an incredibly rich history and culture and arts and stuff, I'm situated in a place that I really like, so I like it here a lot. I think people don't take advantage of where they're at here as much as they should. I
second that 100% because I was also in a similar space where I was trying to figure out, do I go New Brunswick, do I go Camden, different things like that. And I am so glad that I came here for that sense of community that you're talking about and the amount of opportunities here. That's something that we've been working at the Learning Center, just really kind of trying to tap into. I mean, because it's a small community can feel very big if it's active.
Yes.
And so that we've started. It's funny, we've started doing some of the similar things that you were speaking of, like like fostering creativity and artistry. We just had an open mic recently. So I'm just loving hearing that we're on the right track in terms of what students really care about and want to hear, because that sense of community I think is so important. And yeah, no, I just appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, of course. I don't know. I liked the open mics. I was at. I think there's been like 3 or 4 so far throughout the campus.
There's been a lot on campus, yeah.
I went to a few of those and I enjoyed them a lot. And I think that's like more of that is exactly what we need, that kind of stuff where students can foster their talents, their passions, whatever. I think that's a really positive thing.
Yeah, for sure. So as we close out the show, are there any plugs you want to throw in? Is there anything, where can people reach you? Is there anything else you want to touch on before we close out the show with your last few picks for the episode?
Well, again, I wanted to say thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you for coming on.
Of course, this is a great experience. And be sure to tune in, guys, for my show. Tune in every Monday, 8 p.m. Next Monday, though, we'll be having Dillon come on my show, and
yes.
We'll be doing the second half of this collab. So tune in for that, and tune in today at 8 p.m. For my show. I'll be playing some electronic, some like house rap, some ambient stuff. It'll be a vibe. So tune in. Let's see. Follow my Instagram at Joey's _jams_. That's JOEYS_JAMS_. Shout out to all the DJs. Shout out to King Cohen. Tune into Earthquake Thursday at 8 p.m. Justin, is Noah's show still live?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so whose is it? So Dillon's not live, is he?
I don't think Dillon is.
Got you. Tune in Thursday from 4:30 to 6 for Noah's music mastering. Is Dante doing a show this Friday? Okay, never mind then. But yeah, shout out to King, shout out to Noah, and I think that's everything. I think that's everything I want to plug.
Awesome.
Oh, and if you are a student of the College of Arts and Sciences and you are not graduating, vote for me for representative.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, and that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
This
all
was
right.
great.
And I will close out the show. We're going to do a couple more tracks, and then I'll come out after that and do a couple closing announcements. So stick around for that.